here we are. This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat. Bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more.
I think the key point here too is to then what are you doing to integrate this or to continue staying open? And that leads me to ask you, are there practices people can do consistently to maintain this openness? So say they reach this experience and now how do they make a lifestyle out of that?
I love that question. And I think you and I both know that these psychedelic experiences can be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But for me anyway, the next day I wake up and I have to take the garbage out to the curb and take my kid to school.
Yeah.
I live in a very unpsychedelic life, 8 hours or 4 hours or whatever afterwards. Right. So I think that integration question is key.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation, I have found to be an incredible practice. And particularly there's a strand of meditation practice that I would call open awareness meditation, where the whole goal is basically, instead of like cultivating really intense, deep focus or concentration, the goal is more expanding the size of the mind and awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So those practices, Dzogchen, Mahamudra, things like that, I think can be great.
Mm-hmm.
The other practice that is probably one of my favorites, and I think really powerful for people for whom meditation is kind of a non-starter, I call it street opening. And it's basically just this idea of bringing a kind of awareness meditation-like practice with us into the absolute shitstorm that is ordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
So like in the book, I talk about spending a day at my local Costco, trying to turn that into an ashram, by meditating in the furniture section and the pharmacy and things like that. And that's an extreme example, but I have just found that it's really like this incredible practice to use these settings of everyday life, which are often really uncomfortable, annoying, boring. You just think about like an average day, you're stuck in traffic, you're like standing in line at the store and somebody in front of you in the express line has 20 items and it's a 10 item, limit or whatever it is. Turning all of those moments into opportunities to practice that shift. And even just like standing in a grocery store, instead of pulling out your phone, allowing yourself to just see the whole scene in panoramic awareness and listen to the sounds, that subtle shift in consciousness or awareness can be so powerful and can give you like a little microdose of that kind of psychedelic insight, but in the midst of everyday life and can start to become a kind of practice or habit.
Yeah, it's like the lost art of people watching.
Right.
Which is actually one of my favorite games to play. Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, as I think about that too, adding playfulness to that can probably help us to stay present to the experience too. Like, I used to play this game where, I'd see people just out and about, and I'd make up conversations that they would be having. And if I was with somebody, I'd be like, Doris is saying this to so-and-so, and he's having this response back, and just having fun with the environment, versus, going into a screen or going into something that's outside of the environment.
Yeah. And I think that's like something that we may be losing as a society, because I was a teenager in the 90s, and so when I think back to those moments, I spent a lot of time just kind of like sitting there waiting for the bus, and I didn't have a phone. So it would just be observing what was happening, or to your point, making up random conversations, or even, just like allowing my thoughts to settle and listen to the deeper wisdom of my mind that I think like we've kind of lost that practice. And so, simply giving yourself a break every now and then from the phone, not to say like never check it, but maybe only check it 50% of the time. And the other 50% of the time, just like see what's happening in your mind, what's happening around you. That in itself is a really powerful practice of opening.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.